Okay, the day has finally come. We're going to get this peace lily that I've got here. We're going to upgrade it into a different pot, one just a little bit bigger. I've been putting that off now for, I would say, a couple years. And this is actually, I think it's been in this pot over 10 years. And what happens over time, as it becomes more root bound, you really got to stay on top of the watering. This one, about every 4 days, I have to bring it over to a sink and just saturate it, or it's going to start wilting down. That's the symptom that you're seeing here, this yellowing. I was out of town for a couple days, came back, had a soft wilt, and I knew we were going to get this reaction where we had some delayed effect, some injury. That's not always the case on underwatering. Overwatering is probably a little bit more of a problem with the peace lily. They don't mind it a little bit dry. They don't mind a restricted root system. We're going to get this down to the potting bench. We'll clean up a bunch of these dead leaves. Unfortunately, this is in a tapered pot, meaning it comes up and it curls in around the base. So we're actually going to have to break this to get it out of the pot. I hate to do that, but that's something to keep in mind when you're out shopping for pots. If you've got a plant that can get root bound quickly over time, get one that has that taper that goes up rather than restricts in. So we'll get this down to the potting bench and get started. Okay, before we bust that pot off, I'm going to mix up just a little bit of soil. This is a really light germination mix. It's heavy in the peat moss perlite, so it's a little bit lighter than I want, but I've got quite a bit on hand. We're going to pre-moisten this just a little bit, and then I'm going to actually add something that's heavy in pine bark. And actually I'm putting in some of a raw topsoil just to get a little bit heavier mix with this. If you get it wet, it's just a lot easier to work with. Less dust. You can tamp it quite a bit better. Okay, as I mentioned with the tapered pot, take a look at that. See how it just kind of angles in? That's the same scenario here. And just to illustrate, there's just no way that's going to come out of there. So this is a fiber clay. And, see what we've got here. That wasn't too bad. Now you do have the option with the peace lily. You could go ahead, you could cut this root ball completely apart. You could actually take a pruning saw, you could saw it, you can take different types of utility knives, and you could split this into many different little small plants. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to use this nice decorative pot we've got here. First thing you want to do is make sure you've got the right height. I've got a little bit of soil in the bottom there already. I use my shovel as a measuring guide. Well, like that. We're going to add just a little bit more. We'll mix that with the existing soil that was in there. Now the rule of thumb for transplanting, anytime you're upgrading, you only want to go about 1 to 2 inches wider with that root ball. And this is going to be, I think, about in that perfect. Now if you look at that angle there, it's about 1 inch bigger. Let's check the height as long as we've got it in there. I'm going to add just a little bit more. Tamp it just a little bit. We're also going to go ahead and rough up those roots a little bit, encourage them to break away from their root ball, get acclimated to that new soil. The peace lilies in the Spathiphyllum genus, and they're actually native to South America, zone 11, where they grow on the forest floor. Apparently they can actually reach about 6 feet tall. That's why they do so great for us, though, as houseplants, due to how much shade they'll tolerate. This is also considered one of the better plants for cleaning the air in our indoor environments. All right, we'll check our height one last time here. Make sure we're okay. It can take a little time to add that soil, get it kind of packed in there. Oh, it smells like spring. That smell of fresh, wet soil. It's my understanding that that smell isn't the soil itself, but rather some of the different bacteria. I believe actinomycetes is one of them. So the smell of rain, well, it's actually the smell of bacteria. When we're all done with this too, we'll get these leaves cleaned up that are dead on there. We'll give it a nice watering as well. You can see just how much space you need to do a project like this. You can really make a mess quickly. All right. Yeah, we are there. You know, these projects can go pretty darn quick if you've got an area set up and you give yourself the space. It's frustrating to do them sometimes when you're in a tight area. Maybe you're using the kitchen counter and it just turns into a disaster. So do what you can to get an area set up to work on plants like this. This is an ongoing thing, it seems like, with peace lilies too, where you're going to get those spent flowers that you see here. That's kind of continual. I don't have any special tools other than a good Fiskars is a good brand, household scissors. Now that our peace lily is in this bigger pot, I'll likely only be watering it, I think, about every 2 weeks rather than every 4 to 5 days. As I briefly mentioned before, you're going to have a lot better results growing this plant on the dry side. Yeah, it doesn't like wet feet at all. The white part of the flower you see here is actually a specialized leaf bract that grows as a hood over the flower. And you'll usually get quite a bit more flowers in the brighter lit rooms. Looking good. Okay. Yeah, we might just have a few more in there. Look at how much better that peace lily looks. There's one thing I didn't mention also. I tend to do this late winter as we start getting into spring. The days get longer. Your houseplant's just going to react better when it's got additional sunlight. I maybe also didn't mention earlier that location that we have this growing, it never sees direct light. It's just in a north face, bright lit window, and it does extremely well there. And I'm going to set this guy aside, show you one more plant that we've got to deal with. If you like house plants, I'll put a link in the description on a jade we transplanted recently and some Swedish ivy that we propagated. This is an aloe vera. And it's become so large, I've had to put it in one of these bins just to water it. I'm going to quick pop it out of there, give you a little teaser. I don't know what to do. Try to maybe upgrade it. I think I'm just going to have to break this one apart as well. We'll see if we can get this out of here and show you the small pot it's in. There we go. Look at this. Look at that. Whew. I'm betting that thing weighs about 40 pounds with the amount of water that you can get in the leaves. Most likely what we're going to have to do is just take this apart, break it up, and they say they're called pups. And we'll just have to transplant them into a bunch of little pots. I think I'm going to wait a little bit longer. I don't have the room inside. I might do this as we get into April, into the May months where we're not freezing every night. And then I can grow some of these outside for the summer. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for stopping by Garden Hike. We'll see you again next video.